Hey guys, oh, got another story time for you. This ain't got nothing to do with racing today. I'm going all the way back to when I was a kid. This is gonna be a story about cutting firewood, hauling firewood. Uh, I don't know how other people do it. This is just an account of how me and sometimes my brother. I remember him going some. But even I was so young that my brother was 3 or 4 years younger than me. So I mean, it made him really young. But this is a tale of all of us: my uncle, my daddy, and my granddaddy, and me. And that was about it, probably. What it would look like for us to go in the woods to cut firewood. This is just a story. This ain't nothing else. I'm not gonna have any pictures up. I'm not gonna show you anything like that. This is just me telling you a story about my childhood. And think about this. We're in 2023. I've got a boy in high school and one in middle school. And the stuff that I'm fixing to tell you, I don't think I would have done or give them the chance to do like what I was able to do, just because times are different and whatever. But some of you may not believe this, but I'm telling it for the truth. My daddy would get up and go to my granddaddy's, and it always seemed like it was around Thanksgiving sometime. When they were off work, they would plan a day or two to go out into the woods around the house and cut loads of firewood, cut all you could cut for a couple of days, and that would give my granddaddy enough firewood for the year. That would give us enough firewood for the year, and give my uncle enough firewood for the year. So, with 3 families using wood to heat with, it took a lot of firewood. And it's different when you hear people talking about firewood today. There'll be somebody show up at your house, or you call somebody, and they'll bring a little old load. It won't be stacked 3 high and flat across the back of a truck, and it'll cost you $100 to $150 to get that brought to your house. And if you really heated with fire like we did, you would burn that load up on a cold winter in a very short amount of time. So I'm going to go back now to where we actually leaving the house, and I'm going to say this was happening in the earliest days I would remember would probably be with me actually being involved. I'm going to say I was probably 10 years old. That was probably the earliest that I remember being involved in going out into the woods, hunting firewood and all that. So the way this would go down, my granddaddy would get on an old horse he had and just ride off down the road or go in the woods on some land that the paper mill's on. And they just were interested in all the pine. So anywhere we could find some oak standing up, we would try to be careful, not tear up anything else, but we would go down into the woods and cut these oaks and drag them out and use them for firewood. So he would go kind of scout out the location, and he would know where all of them were at. He would know how many we're going to cut. There was a plan, kind of made before we ever even left. So I'd get up on a Saturday morning with Daddy. They'd all meet over at Granddaddy's house. It'd be real early in the morning, and we'd go out in the barn. My granddaddy had an old John Deere 420 tricycle front end. I hadn't looked it up. I'm assuming it was probably in the 50s, somewhere around a 50 model tractor. I don't know exactly what it was, but I could drive the tractor. I could drive my daddy's truck. It was an automatic. I didn't have to fool with no clutch or nothing. And we would leave and go into the woods. We would take a tractor, a boom pole, all the chains we needed, chainsaws, and at least 2 trucks, sometimes 3 trucks. So when we took the tractor, that meant we had to have 4 people. That was 3 trucks and a tractor. So that was my daddy, my uncle, and my granddaddy. Well, it had to make me drive something to get there. And this was, if sometimes we were cutting, it would be just down the road. It wouldn't be very far, maybe a mile or 2. And then other times I remember us going to cutting, and we would have to go all the way down 3 or 4 miles probably to Highway 63. We would cross over and go down an old CC road. And the reason I remember this so vividly, we would stop by a store at the end of the road down there, and any of y'all that watching this video that's from where I live at, you'll know that there was an old Penny's grocery store right at the end of the road there. And I remember stopping in that store early in the morning, me driving my daddy's truck. It was a 1976 Chevrolet Silverado, or Custom 10 Deluxe or whatever. And I was so small that I couldn't hardly reach the pedals or see over the steering wheel. And we went in that store. Daddy bought me a pack of crackers or a cream soda, something to nibble on, and we ate it, or either we got back in the truck or I got back in the truck. So that put my daddy on the John Deere tractor, my granddaddy driving his truck, and my uncle driving his truck, and I'm in daddy's truck. So we go out on the road, state highway, drive down probably a mile or so, turn off of that, and we get on the old CC road, and we just going back through there, finding the spot where granddaddy found the wood at. So we, on this particular road, there was 2 wooden bridges. And when I say wooden bridges, there was wooden planks across the water, like no sides on the bridge. It had planks running across the road, and then there was like 2 runners going lengthways of the bridge, across the bridge. So I remember being so small that I could drive that truck. I could do anything in it, drive it, do whatever I needed to. But I remember being so small, pulling up to that bridge, and I watched my daddy go across on that tractor, and I watched my granddaddy go across, and I watched my uncle go across. And when it come time for me to go, it terrified me to look at that wooden bridge and think that I could drive across that, because it looked like I was going to fall off of it, you know. So I'm saying that part to let you know how little I was driving that truck out on that road, down in them woods, going to get firewood. So I stopped. Daddy's up ahead of me, and they're all waving, come on across, come on across. And I sat there and could not make myself drive that truck across that bridge. So Daddy gets down off the tractor, runs back there to where I'm at, and drives the truck across the bridge for me. And we make it up to the next one, does the same thing again, and then we're at our spot then. So we go down in the woods, and most of the time when we got down in the woods, Daddy and Uncle Mitchell and Granddaddy, they would take off down in the woods to wherever the spot was Granddaddy found. Well, it was my job to run from where we set up at out on the flat ground. We had a spot out there that we pulled the logs up to, kind of like a landing, and we just pulled Daddy and them would trim them up down in the bushes, down in the woods, and I would just pull out logs. And I'd pull them out on the tractor. I'd get off, hook the chain up, pull it out to the top of the hill, get off, take the chain off, tie the chain up, drive back down the hill, or back down to wherever the wood was at. So Daddy and them's just steadily cutting the whole time, dropping trees, topping them, cutting all the limbs off of them, cleaning them up, and I'm hauling all these logs to the top of the hill. So when we do this for a while and they get all they want cut and they come up to the landing, then I've got logs just pulled out there. Some of them be, 20 foot long, 30 foot long. Just cut up oak wood. And they would all come out of the woods, all three of them. They'd come up to the landing, and we'd have all the trucks parked out there side by side. And whenever they come back out of the woods, they'd gas their saws back up, oil them up, and go to cutting them logs up into real firewood pieces. And it didn't have to be small stuff. Granddaddy would cut big stuff. Even as a kid, I remember stuff seemed like it was, we'd throw it up there, or we'd use the tractor to get a set of tongs, go in that chunk of wood, set that thing up in the bed of a truck, and sometimes it wouldn't, but about 3 or 4 of them go across the width of the truck. And again, I don't see this. I hadn't seen this since we've done it back that long ago. When we loaded a truck down, it would be heaped up to the cab and back down the side. And sometimes we'd even put stakes in the sides back there to help hold one more row of wood. And them trucks would be sitting down to just look like they was going to pop the tires. And if we was in any kind of a hilly area, we'd either have to hook a tractor to some of the trucks and pull them all the way pull them back up to the road just to get out on the highway and drive all the way back home. So if we was close to the house, Granddaddy or Daddy, they'd let me drive the tractor home. But if we was far away, then I would end up driving a truck home. And I just don't know that there's that many now that would put a 10, 11, or even a 12-year-old kid behind the wheel of a truck that's got way, way more weight than it was ever made to haul. Oak wood wrapped up all the way up over the cab, And again, I wish I had somebody that you could ask this and they'll tell you the same story I'm telling you. Maybe in the comments, some of y'all that know me and know my family, if y'all ever knew anything about us going to cut firewood, you might can vouch for me on some of this. But we would take it all the way back to Granddaddy's house, out around his barn. Daddy and Uncle Mitchell built a wood splitter, homemade, hooked. It was a 3-point hookup, hooked to the John Deere tractor, had a PTO drive on it. You could hook that thing up, roll them old big pieces of wood up on that splitter, and it was made with a cylinder off of a dump truck. So the cylinder and the lift that raises the dump truck bed is the same cylinder that we used to split firewood. And I've never seen a piece laid up on it that it wouldn't push through. It didn't matter if it had a knot. It didn't matter how big it was. It might go down there and tremble a little bit right before it popped it, but I've never seen one put in it that it would not bust. And they, we would come back to the house. Maybe this was the second day of them being off. We would come back and split wood, all day long. Well, my granddaddy had a barn that had some stalls in it where horses used to stay, and we'd load them stalls like from floor to ceiling. Split oak firewood, and all for the next year or two. If you didn't cut no more wood, you just ride over to Granddaddy's house out to the barn, load your trailer, load your truck, whatever you was over there in, and take it take it home with you, you know, and use your firewood. That's how we come about the firewood. And I mean, I remember loading it. I remember loading the trucks. Anything I could pick up. It'd be pieces that I couldn't even. I'd be so small I may not be able to pick up none, you know, that big around. But this went on all of my childhood, I guess. And this is just stuff that I'm telling that you may not hear very many people that's my age say. This sounds like stories that comes from people that's older than me. And but me being very, very young, fooling with it, I learned all kind of stuff. Learned how to handle heavy stuff. Learned how to pull stuff with a tractor without being dangerous. Learned how to hitch up stuff, you know, pull with a chain. And it wasn't just me doing it. My granddaddy was showing me all this. My daddy was showing me these things. And just learning. And I just think about it like I don't know that with my kids, if they were 10 years old, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be down in the woods and one of them on a tractor pulling logs that are 20 or 30 or 40 foot long. I just don't think it would have ever happened that way. I would have liked to have think that it could have, but just with the times we're living in, it's not the same anymore. But anyway, this is just a story, and this is the way things were when I was young, when I was in my 10, 11, 12, 13, that age range is where it all started. And my granddaddy would put me on tractors, tell me where to go and how to cut, and I'd bush hog, disc the ground for the gardens. They all still planted gardens at this time. And when I say gardens, they were big gardens. This was not walk out your back door and have a little spot that's 10 foot around. There was multiple field locations whenever they talked about a garden. And some of them, I mean, Daddy planted a garden in our backyard that had rows that was probably 200 foot long or better. Maybe 300 foot long, I don't know. But so they were, this is just stuff that went on when we was little and coming up. And I wouldn't take nothing for it. I mean, at the time, I love the tractor driving and the hauling and all that. Some of the other stuff with the gardening, I don't remember it being the most fun in the world. But the stuff with the tractors, I just eat all that up. Pulling something heavy, hauling something heavy, I loved all of that. And it made it to where now, even in my everyday life, working in the shop, picking up heavy material with a forklift or something, I'm experienced to the point of knowing how to handle that stuff and not get nobody hurt, not get me hurt, and not break and tear up stuff. And I think it just comes from me absorbing and learning all that stuff from all of them that was around me that was older and knew how to do it, you know. But anyway, it's just old firewood tale, and not a tale, but a true story. And I'll try to think of things like this, stuff that went on that might be interesting to listen to. So if you thought this story was entertaining, or you was interested in sitting here listening to me talk, subscribe to my channel, give me a like, get down in the comments and tell me some of your stories of how things used to happen when you was younger or whatever age you were. I'll be 50 years old this year, and so you know, this is me back in the late 70s, early 80s. So yeah, this is. I mean, I'm not talking about stuff in the 40s and the 50s. That would have been stuff that would have been something to my granddaddy and my daddy. This is stuff I actually was involved in, and again, I've told others that living where we live and the things that we get into, it's almost like we lived in a time further back than what we really did. I always felt like I missed out on like I was living in the wrong generation. I always felt like I probably should have been in the older generation. But anyway, that's just my story for this evening, and hopefully you'll find some entertainment in it, or either get in the comments and we'll talk about it, and I'll come back with some more stories and tell you if I get some interest in this, and anybody enjoys it. Just let me know. That's it. Catch y'all on the next one.